For over 2,000 years, a name has echoed through the corridors of history, whispered by scholars, treasure hunters, and dreamers alike. A name that speaks of a lost golden age, of unimaginable wealth, and of a cataclysm so profound it wiped an entire civilization from the face of the earth in a single terrible moment. That name is Atlantis. But what if this was more than just a story? What if the greatest legend in human history was actually a memory? What if a lost chapter of our past is waiting right now to be rediscovered beneath the waves? Our journey begins not in the depths of the ocean, but in the mind of one man, the Athenian philosopher Plato. Around 360 BC, he penned a story that would outlive his own civilization. It was the only account, the sole source, the one blueprint of this lost world. He described it not as myth, but as history, a veritable history. Tonight, we will separate fact from fiction. We will deconstruct Plato's original text, journey to the most likely locations for this lost continent, and examine the startling evidence that science is only now beginning to understand. The question is no longer if a great civilization could vanish without a trace, but where. Join us as we hunt for the forbidden truth behind the legend of Atlantis. To truly understand Atlantis, we must first understand the story's origin. Plato claimed he did not invent it. The tale, he said, was passed down through his family from his ancestor, the great Athenian lawgiver Solon. Around 600 BC, Solon traveled to Egypt, to the ancient city of Sais. There, priests of the goddess Neith revealed to him a history unknown to the Greeks, preserved in their temple records for millennia. They spoke of a mighty empire that existed 9,000 years before their time, an island nation situated beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. This was the blueprint the priests gave to Solon, a description so vivid and precise it defies imagination. The main island was vast, larger than ancient Libya and Asia combined. From it, one could reach a true continent on the other side of the ocean. But the heart of the empire was its capital city, a marvel of engineering and geometry. Plato's dialogue, the Critias, gives us the exact dimensions. A central island, 5 stadia in diameter, surrounded by a ring of sea 1 stadium wide. Then a ring of land 2 stadia wide, followed by another ring of sea of the same width. Finally, a third ring of land 3 stadia wide, encircled by a final ring of sea. This entire complex was connected to the ocean by a massive canal, 300 feet wide and 100 feet deep, stretching 5 miles inland. It was a city designed for both defense and commerce, a perfect fusion of land and water. The city's wealth was legendary, protected by 3 immense fortified walls. The outer wall was clad in brass, gleaming in the sun. The middle wall was coated in tin. But the inner wall, the one protecting the central citadel, was said to flash with the red light of orichalcum. Plato described this metal as precious, second only to gold, and mined from the earth of the island. Its true nature remains one of history's greatest material mysteries. Was it a natural alloy of copper and gold, a form of polished brass, or something else entirely? a metal lost to the ages. At the very heart of the citadel stood the sacred temple dedicated to Poseidon and his mortal wife Cleito, the progenitors of the Atlantean royal line. The temple's exterior was covered entirely in silver, its pinnacles in gold. Inside, the ceiling was ivory, and the temple housed a colossal gold statue of the sea god himself. The island was rich in resources, from elephants to exotic fruits, and its engineers had mastered advanced hydraulics, channeling both hot and cold springs into elaborate public baths and irrigation systems. The empire was ruled by a confederation of 10 kings, descendants of Poseidon's 10 sons, with the eldest line ruling from the capital. Plato describes their laws and their initial virtue. They despised everything but virtue, caring little for their vast wealth. But this golden age was not to last. As generations passed, Plato writes that their divine nature became diluted by mortal admixture. The virtue faded, replaced by an insatiable greed. Filled with unrighteous avarice and power, they sought to conquer the world. Their vast army and fleet, numbering over 1 million soldiers and 1,200 warships, swept through Europe and Africa, enslaving nations. Only a small, primitive Athens stood against them, a final bastion of freedom. And then, for their hubris, the gods themselves exacted a terrible price. In Plato's chilling words, "There occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. An empire erased, a warning echoing through eternity." Was it merely a philosophical fable, or was Plato recording the faint memory of a real historical cataclysm? The hunt for the answer begins now. The hunt for Atlantis has taken us from the heart of the Aegean to the coast of America and deep into the Sahara. We're about to explore the global echoes of a drowned world, looking at evidence that spans the entire planet. If you find these ancient mysteries as fascinating as we do, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss where the evidence leads us next.
If an empire of this magnitude truly existed, its ghost must haunt some corner of our world. The conviction that Atlantis was real has fueled a global search, turning scholars into detectives and ancient texts into treasure maps. For many, the trail leads not to a lost continent in the Atlantic, but to a very real civilization that suffered a catastrophe of truly Atlantean proportions. The island of Santorini, known in antiquity as Thera, today it is a jewel of the Aegean. But around 1600 BC, this paradise was the epicenter of hell on Earth. The Theran eruption was one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history, a cataclysm that vaporized the heart of the island in a blast hundreds of times more powerful than an atomic bomb. On this very island flourished the sophisticated Minoan civilization. At the site of Akrotiri, an entire city was entombed and preserved under 50 feet of volcanic ash, a Bronze Age Pompeii. Archaeologists, led by Spiridon Mariantos in the 1960s, unearthed multi-story buildings with advanced indoor plumbing, magnificent frescoes depicting scenes of daily life, and a powerful seafaring culture. No bodies have been found, suggesting the inhabitants had warning and evacuated. But where did they go? The eruption triggered a tsunami that devastated the northern coast of Crete, the center of Minoan power, crippling their naval dominance. The parallels to Plato's story are striking. A powerful, advanced island civilization destroyed by a natural disaster involving the sea. Many scholars, like archaeologist J.V. Luce, argue that the memory of this traumatic event was passed down through generations of Egyptians who traded with the Minoans. 1,000 years later, it reached Solon, its timeline and location distorted by the mists of time, becoming the legend of Atlantis. The theory is compelling, but it has its problems. Santorini is in the Aegean, not the Atlantic, and the timeline is off by thousands of years. Is it the right story in the wrong place? To find the right place, some researchers look across the Atlantic to the shallow, crystalline waters of the Bahamas. Here, just off the coast of Bimini Island, lies the Bimini Road. Discovered in 1968, it's a submerged pathway of massive, rectangular limestone blocks, some as long as 16 feet, arranged in a neat linear formation for nearly half a mile. To many geologists, it's a classic example of natural beach rock, sediment that cements together in the tidal zone, then fractures into geometric patterns. But for others, the structure is too perfect, too ordered to be natural. The discovery was amplified by the prophecies of the American psychic Edgar Cayce. Decades earlier, Cayce, in a trance, predicted that a portion of Atlantis would be discovered near Bimini in 68 or 69. For his followers, the Bimini Road was the fulfillment of that prophecy. They point to what appear to be multi-layered constructions, prop stones placed deliberately under larger blocks, and even what some claim are tool marks. Could this be a submerged harbor wall? A road from a lost city? Carbon dating of the rock itself places it only a few thousand years old, far too young for Plato's Atlantis. Yet the mystery and the debate continues to rage beneath the waves. Perhaps the most visually stunning candidate, however, can only truly be appreciated from space. Lost in the vastness of the Sahara Desert in Mauritania is a feature so enormous and so strange it was used as a landmark by early astronauts. This is the Richat Structure, the Eye of the Sahara, a 25-mile-wide geological dome of perfectly concentric rings. The visual parallels to Plato's capital city are, frankly, astonishing. Plato described a city of concentric rings of land and water. The Richat structure is a series of concentric rings of eroded rock. Proponents of this theory point out that the Sahara was not always a desert. During the African humid period, it was a lush savanna with rivers and lakes. They argue that the measurements of the rings in the Richat structure align almost perfectly with Plato's description. The central island is the right size, the subsequent rings match the proportions, and Plato describes mountains to the north of the city. The Richat structure has mountains to its north. Geologists are firm that the eye is a natural formation, a geologic dome that has eroded over 100 million years. There is no hard archaeological evidence of a major civilization ever existing at the site. But could a city have been built within this natural formation, utilizing its unique geography? Could the salt flats within the rings be the remnants of evaporated sea canals? The Eye of the Sahara stares back at us, a silent circular enigma that matches the blueprint in ways no other location can.
The story of a great flood, a world-destroying deluge that wipes the slate of civilization clean, is not unique to Plato. It is humanity's most persistent and universal myth, a collective scar on our ancestral memory, a story told in over 200 cultures across the globe. In ancient Mesopotamia, The Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, a man warned by the gods to build a great boat to survive a flood that will destroy mankind. In the Hindu Puranas, the sage Manu is saved from a global flood by the fish avatar of Vishnu. The details change, but the core story remains: divine anger, a warning, a vessel, and a world reborn from water. Could these all be echoes of a single global event? For decades, this was dismissed as pure myth, but modern science is beginning to paint a very different picture of our ancient past. The date Plato gives for the destruction of Atlantis is 9600 BC. For a long time, this date was considered absurdly ancient, but geologists now know it is one of the most significant moments in recent planetary history. It marks the end of the last ice age and a period of catastrophic global climate change known as the Younger Dryas. During this time, colossal ice sheets that had covered entire continents melted at an astonishing rate, causing a dramatic rise in global sea levels. Coastlines were not just altered, they were obliterated. Sea levels rose by hundreds of feet, swallowing millions of square miles of coastal land, the very land where early human civilizations would have thrived. The area of Doggerland in the North Sea, once a fertile plain populated by humans, now lies at the bottom of the ocean. The continental shelves of every continent, once exposed, were drowned. This wasn't a myth, it was a true global geological reality, a true worldwide flood. Any civilization that existed in these coastal zones would have been completely erased, leaving behind only whispers, legends, and myths. And we know for a fact that entire cities can vanish. In the year 2000, marine archaeologists discovered the lost city of Tonis Heraklion, swallowed by the Mediterranean Sea over 1,200 years ago. Off the coast of Greece lies Pavlopetri, a complete Bronze Age city with streets, buildings, and tombs submerged for 5,000 years. These incredible discoveries prove one thing beyond all doubt: the ocean is the ultimate keeper of secrets. The idea that a vast island civilization could be lost beneath the waves is not just possible, it is plausible.
Despite these tantalizing clues, these echoes of a drowned world, the vast majority of mainstream historians and archaeologists remain unconvinced. They stand before a critical, gaping hole in the entire hunt for Atlantis, a profound and deafening silence. Not a single other ancient text, not from Egypt, not from the Hittites, not from any other Greek writer, ever mentions this supposedly immense and powerful empire. It exists only and exclusively in the writings of Plato. For a historian, this is the ultimate red flag. If an empire capable of challenging the entire known world existed, it would have left ripples throughout the records of its neighbors and adversaries. Yet there are none. This leads most scholars to a firm conclusion. Atlantis was never a real place. It was a philosophical tool, a brilliant and masterfully crafted allegory created by Plato for a specific purpose. To understand this, we must understand Plato's world. He was a political philosopher, deeply concerned with the nature of justice, power, and the ideal state. The academic consensus is that Atlantis was his ultimate cautionary tale. Atlantis, with its godlike origins, immense wealth, and technological prowess,
represented the dangers of a state that succumbs to imperial ambition and moral decay. Its hubris and corruption made it a fallen utopia. Ancient Athens, by contrast, depicted in the story as small, virtuous, and communally unified, represented Plato's ideal society, a mirror of the concepts he explored in his most famous work, The Republic. The war between them was not a historical conflict, but a philosophical one, a battle between earthly greed and divine virtue. It was a morality play, a thought experiment about power, ethics, and the inevitable downfall that follows arrogance, woven into the fabric of a compelling narrative. For these scholars, the search for a physical Atlantis is a fool's errand. It is like trying to find the precise coordinates of Tolkien's Mordor or the Republic of a philosopher king. The true meaning of Atlantis, they argue, is not buried beneath the sea, but is hidden in plain sight within the text itself. Its meaning is not in its location, but in its lesson. So where does this leave us at the end of our journey? We stand between two worlds. In one, we have a meticulous blueprint from one of history's greatest minds. We have real-world cataclysms like the eruption of Thera and the rising seas at the end of the Ice Age that echo the legend with chilling accuracy. We have candidate locations like the enigmatic Richat Structure that match the description in startling ways. In the other world, we have the profound silence from the rest of antiquity and a compelling, logical argument that the entire story is a philosophical allegory, a choice between a lost history and a profound lesson. Perhaps the truth, as it so often does, lies somewhere between. Atlantis may not have been a single continent that vanished in a day, but a composite memory, a story masterfully woven together by Plato from the fragmented threads of real events, the volcanic destruction of the Minoan civilization, the drowned memory of coastal cities consumed by the Younger Dryas floods, the tales of distant lands brought back by sailors. He may have gathered these fragmented histories and forged them into a single, powerful legend to serve his philosophical purpose, a story with a real historical soul. The city of gold and orichalcum may never be found. Its concentric rings may never be excavated. But the hunt for Atlantis is more than a search for lost treasure. It is a search for ourselves. Now, we want to hear from you. Which theory do you find most compelling? The volcanic memory of Santorini, the strange formation in the Sahara, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. The hunt continues. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you in the next mystery.